Entrepreneurially Thinking is a presentation of BioSTL and CET, Center for Emerging Technologies, with RareGem Productions, changing the way you view new ventures, including you on the pathway to success with your business in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. Here's your hosts, Cheryl and Christy. Now let's get thinking entrepreneurially.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast. Our goal is to energize your entrepreneurial mindset and create pathways for business success in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. I'm Christy Maxfield, Director of Entrepreneur Development Services at the Center for Emerging Technologies.
And I'm Cheryl Watkins-Moore, Director of Bioscience and Entrepreneurial Inclusion for BioSTL. Hey, Christy, we're here again.
I love it. Thanks for coming back. All of you, the listeners, Cheryl, everybody. We can't do it without you.
Yeah, we showed up today.
Yeah, I love it. Showing up matters and counts, and sometimes is the most important thing. So as you know, if you've listened to us before, this podcast is about stepping outside of your comfort zone. We encourage you to carve out this time as a time where you can think about your opportunities and business goals in new ways, because we want to help you remove those limitations about how you think about small business, working for yourself, being entrepreneurial right where you are.
Yes.
You can stay connected to the Entrepreneurially Thinking community on all of your favorite streaming platforms. We're on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, or you can visit our website at entrepreneuriallythinking.com and follow the hashtag at ETHINKSTL.
Yes. Well, many of you may know that CET, or the Center for Emerging Technologies, has been working to find support and grow entrepreneurial ventures for almost 20 years.
We're one of the older kids in the neighborhood.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
We predate a lot of folks.
Yes,
I'm just saying.
Yes, you do. And especially down here in the Cortex area, you guys were probably the first in with our innovation community here.
Yes. I think is what we would call pioneers.
Well, CET is the state's oldest and largest innovation center. Originally, CET focused on bioscience entrepreneurs. Many great startups, including Nanopore Diagnostics, Immunophotonics, Kypha and MediBeacon, participated in what was then CET's Bio Entrepreneur Development Program, or the BED program, BED program, that debuted in 2011. I can't believe I've been in this ecosystem this long, because that's about the time that I joined.
I was doing my own venture then. I didn't know what BED was, other than the place I didn't get to spend much time because I wasn't sleeping. But no, 2011.
Oh, wow. But in 2014, the BED program expanded its focus to include IT, consumer manufactured products, as well as bioscience, and renamed it the Square One program.
The idea is that we're all at square one when we're doing that
we
program.
are.
Even if some of us have already launched something, we're still at square one.
Right. Today, the Square One Bootcamp and Square One Ignite programs are the flagship entrepreneur training programs at CET. Well, today, you guys, we brought in two, I think, fabulous entrepreneurs that we're going to be talking about. We've asked Sarah Bannerman, founder of HIPAATrek, and Brad Postier, co-founder and CEO of Spectrum Perception. Both of these guys are Square One Bootcamp graduates. They're doing some phenomenal work here in our region, and they're joining us today for a conversation about being a startup founder, their Square One experience, and their personal journeys as entrepreneurs. All that in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Now here's Make It Happen with Keith Sales Pro.
How do successful people think? According to author Tom Black of Boxcar Millionaire, here are 5 more beliefs of highly successful people. Successful people are willing to leave their comfort zones. Successful people are consummate professionals and behave accordingly. Successful people accept change as a part of life willingly and completely. And finally, successful people make decisions quickly and then take immediate action. Today, remember, it can happen. It will happen. And together, we will make it happen.
Follow Keith Sales Pro on Facebook or Twitter at Keith Sales Pro, or visit his website at keithsalespro.com.
It can happen. It will happen. And together, we will make it happen.
I'm Brad Postier with Spectrum Perception, and entrepreneurial thinking means to me thinking about opportunity, risk, strategy, and time.
Well, thank you, Sarah and Brad, for joining us. We're really glad that you're here. We don't always spend a whole episode talking about one of our programs in particular, but the CET Square One program is really growing, and it's not that it wasn't great before, but we really have a lot of traction now and some really great people working with us as entrepreneurs, subject matter experts, mentors. And we just want to make sure that you understand what it means. You know, us talking about going through a 10-week boot camp or a 4-week Ignite program sounds really abstract. And so having Sarah and Brad join us is a way for this to be real for you all and get a better insight into what it is you might want to join us for.
I think people need to understand that this Square One program is actually an entry point for many people into our ecosystem. And it's a vetted program, vetted mentors, ways to really validate your business plan, either pivot, persevere, or what's your first one? Perish.
The idea is fail fast, right? And iterate and figure out what you need to know. And we're going to talk to two folks who have done that, not only with Square One, but with other ecosystem partners and get their perspective. So, Sarah, could you start us off? Tell us a little bit about yourself and HIPAATrek and get us started.
Okay, well, Sarah Bannerman. I've been with HIPAATrek for 2 years. We founded it in 2014. Before that, I worked in healthcare administration, which kind of gave us the idea for a HIPAA compliant software. A little background. So healthcare administration and working in the kind of the back offices, the bowels of healthcare, you see a lot of nasty little healthcare missteps when it comes to compliance as well as the administration processes. And really it comes down to everybody has way too much on their plate, which we can all kind of relate to. And with that, like sometimes your HIPAA compliance, which actually protects the patient's privacy and the security of that data in order to keep it private, kind of goes by the wayside, you know, and like we do our best as healthcare administrators to ensure that everything is kept private and secure. But with so much on your plate and you're really worried more about your patients and their well-being, that you allow that to kind of fall off the wayside. So that is a big no-no, as we all know. Being non-HIPAA compliant there's a financial penalty to that. And it can be huge. I mean, it's millions of dollars that a hospital or a practice could lose if they don't adhere to HIPAA. So through that, I actually started then consulting. I quit my day job and I became a HIPAA consultant. After that, I started my very own company that, I bit the dust hard on that one. That one was painful. I came up like
it was a learning opportunity, right?
This was before HIPAATrek.
Yes,
before HIPAATrek, it was a different startup that just it failed so fantastically miserably that it was. I wish that it had perished quickly. Unfortunately, I was a little bit stubborn, as redheads typically are, and
entrepreneurs. We need that passion, but it can sometimes leave us in a place that we should have exited a little bit sooner.
Yeah, so I stuck that one out for about 2 years, and even though I had wonderful mentors like Cheryl telling me to quit, stop this madness, Sarah, it's done, leave it, it's dead, and I was like, no, but I can make it work. And really, it was when I founded the company, I didn't have enough confidence in myself and my own abilities that I thought I needed a co-founder that was essentially an equal partner to myself.
Okay.
And so nothing ever happened because we were the wrong fit together. So
this is something I think that most folks need to hear this story, because they come out of the box, and a lot of times women do this. They come out thinking, I need this guy maybe to help me either validate my business or validate, you know.
It was a dude.
How did I know that? But I think that folks listening, just understanding you have all the right things within yourself. You bring somebody in that's going to add to and not just take up or take over your company, because you have all that expertise.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. You know, we never even, like with the first startup, we never got a product developed. Never. We never got any clients. Never. Essentially, we took my consulting business and continued it. And then I was paying this guy like half of what I was making when I was selling my own clients, I brought my own book of business in. It was my work, and I was paying him to basically boss me around and tell me this crap that I didn't need to know, and it was frustrating. And
so
I just
sometimes
wanted
coworkers are really co-founders, I should say. Co-workers, another story, but co-founders can be really, really important. But it's always about the right relationship.
You have to have a co-founder. You can't do this alone. Like, you have to bring in the right people. But I think that it's something that you should take your time in identifying who those people are and making sure that you, number one, are on the same page and have the same vision. Because my ex-co-founder and I did not. We did not have the same vision. We were not on the same page, and it was disastrous. Then, because there's nothing against this guy. I mean, he was brilliant.
Right.
Just not
the right fit.
Right.
Yeah, not the right way for me. And, and I didn't trust. I thought, well, here I am, like, I have a master's in public health. I'm a, healthcare administrator. I know HIPAA like nobody else. Yeah. And I was like, I want to stay in my lane, and I want somebody else to run the business aspect, because I've never been in business before. Because even though I was in healthcare administration, I didn't do business. I did, studies, which is different than doing the business side. And so instead of like trying to find help and I already had help, I had great mentors. I had great people around me trying to help support me, just trying to get me on the right path. And it was really, everybody was telling me to cut this guy loose. And then because I didn't do it soon enough and we had brought in enough consulting revenue, he didn't want to let it go.
Right.
I didn't want to let it go. And then I ended up bailing. And I crashed hard. It was painful.
But that's called a learning experience. I always say, whatever experience that you have, take that and learn from it, and be it good or bad.
HIPAATrek was take 2. Apparently.
HIPAATrek was take 2. So I exited that company, and 7 days later, I founded HIPAATrek.
Awesome.
It took me 7 days to pick myself up, lick my wounds, and move forward. And I
was going to say, so you may not have failed fast, but you bounced back pretty quick. That's a cool rebound.
Well, but I knew, right? So as a mathematician, right? So I actually went through and I knew what the opportunity was. I knew how big that this could be. And I was like, you know what? This is still a calculated risk, and I'm still going to go for it.
That's awesome.
I got back up in that airplane and I jumped right back out, still not knowing that parachute was going to open. It did, by the way, this time.
Yes, it did.
2 years later, and we're doing fantastic.
And we're going to come back to that in just a second, but I know Brad has also, you are co-founder, so we know you've got a co. And since yours is a going concern as well, I assume that co has been working out great. But tell us a little bit about yourself and about Spectrum.
So I'm Brad Postier. I'm a microbiologist and molecular biologist by training, and so I've worked in a lot of research labs. My first experience in corporate world was with another startup, but I wasn't at the top. I was an employee, and unfortunately, that opportunity failed, went bankrupt eventually, and I was one of the first ones let go, and it kind of frustrated me because I didn't feel like I should have been one of the first ones let go. I brought in a lot of grant money, but it was motivation, and so I decided, all right, I can't be the employee, I need to be the employer,
right?
Because the decisions that were made, I didn't agree with, but it didn't matter, and so started thinking, what was my next venture going to be? I started looking for work, kind of a part-time, or started teaching at a local university. And then an opportunity came up with my now co-founder. He had a concept that he was working with students in his undergraduate research program, and I wasn't really sold on it at the time. And then over a winter break, I did just a few experiments for him to see if it would really apply to the things what I thought were key experiments. And it did, and it convinced me that maybe this is worth looking into more. So over the course of the next semester, I looked into, is this a real business model? Is there something that real value to this product? And it was. And so we started doing prototyping then. I knew nothing compared to what I know now. I didn't know about, as a microbiologist, they don't teach you how to be an engineer. Right. So I've kind of trained myself to become an engineer. I didn't know how to make a pro forma. I didn't know how to pitch. I didn't know how to these things that, fortunately, I came into the Square One program, and that's where I really started thinking as a business person. But I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Well, tell us, what does Spectrum Perception do? What do you guys do?
So we're making a research instrument. We're taking an instrument that already exists in the lab. It's called a spectrophotometer. It's used to measure the concentration and purity of different analytes in the lab. So it might be blood samples, it might be nucleic acids or proteins or cell density. There's a variety of different things that probably thousands of assays that are developed for spectrophotometers. But it's not user-friendly. It's an instrument that's dedicated to a computer. It sits in a bench. The really good ones are expensive, and people prefer to use those. They'll travel from one lab to another lab to use them, or even to another floor to use them. And so what we're doing is we're taking the same concepts of their favorite instrument, which is a nanodrops, my competitor. And the thing is, it's easy to use, but it's just not convenient. It's not co-located where you work. What we're doing is we're taking the same concepts and applying it to a micropipette. So you can draw up your sample, you can measure it, and put the sample right back. So you have no sample loss. You're saving a lot of time. You can use it in a biological safety cabinet. You can use it in confined spaces. You can take it into the field. It's a portable spectrophotometer.
Wow.
We've simplified the design so that it's modular. And it's designed to work for your specific application. So I said it can do 1,000 different applications, but most people do like 2 or 5, right? They're not using the 1,000, they're using 5 routinely. And so it's really designed for those routine assays, and it saves you a lot of time and a lot of resources, and it's far less expensive than our competing instruments are.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and both of our guests today are what I would call technical founders. We see non-technical founders come through Square One as well, and those are usually folks who have an idea but don't actually have the background to execute. They need different kinds of partners in order to be successful moving forward. You guys both know the technical aspects of your work, and we always remind people, if you think that this coming up with good ideas thing might be something that you want to explore, start at home, so to speak. Start with what you know. Start looking around your own work environment, your own area of expertise, and ask yourself what could be done better, what could be done in a new or different way. What way might we use something that already exists and come out with a different result?
Well, that was my point, is that I was just about to say, is that you guys found a need in the communities in which you played. Sarah, you knew about, how HIPAA is daunting for many organizations. You worked in that field, so you saw and you came up with this great, I think, software for a lot of these organizations. And Brad, you came up, you looked at what were these organizations doing, how they were moving equipment across sites and organizations, which is unbelievable. And you guys came up with an opportunity that's not only a mobile, but portable, and I'm sure a low-cost solution to these environments. So it's about understanding the need, going back to that.
And that it can happen in your environment as well, that these opportunities exist. And also, you guys are crossing what I would call crossing industries, intersections. Brad said they didn't train me on how to be an engineer. I'm married to an engineer who's not a microbiologist. So the idea that what might be considered a bioscience startup is also a manufacturing operation. What is HIPAATrek is a IT startup, but it also has other aspects of the work that is being done and other levels of expertise that need to be there. So we're living in a time and a place where we're rarely just one kind of venture anymore. And those are interesting things to explore. So as you guys did go through that, Brad, you touched on that Square One was a really important place to come. And Sarah, you mentioned that, you crunched the numbers on your own and you figured, this was a calculated risk worth taking. But what did you really look to programs like Square One to bring to the table that you didn't already have in the form of mentors or expertise? Do you want to start us off, Sarah?
Sure. So what did I look for? So I had no idea, like Brad alluded to like a pro forma. People would say that, and I was like, pro forma? I don't even know what that means. Like, I don't know. You're telling me I need this, and I don't even know what this is.
And I'm sure you're a master in Excel already, right?
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
That's the biggest step.
Yeah, I do know Excel, but
all of it, right?
Yeah, but those are things I didn't know. How do I pitch? And I'd been through Capital Innovators, which is a great program here in St. Louis as well. But again, I didn't really know how to break it down into these pieces.
And the fundamentals.
Yeah, Square One broke it down into which was incredibly painful. But that stupid graph that Travis put out, I wanted to shoot him. It was this. I don't know, this roadmap thing. And you have to think about all these little different buckets. And it was painful. It was painful. But I did it.
In a wonderful kind of way.
But we still use that every time we want to think about a new idea or new feature inside of our platform.
It gives you some framework to
yeah.
think through.
Yeah.
Frameworks are always painful when you're working through them, but they do provide you, I think, some strategic direction. Exactly. It's a tool for you to think through, but it's not always fun. But
it makes you ask yourself questions that
yes.
you maybe didn't have answers for you, or makes you realize, I haven't thought about this yet, right? These are things that, as a business person, now that I have wearing that hat, you have to think about more aspects than just how I would use the instrument, right?
And I think that's what Square One gives, because you guys are both have technical backgrounds. You have the healthcare in your background, but as you both admittedly said, you worked the business side to the organizations that you worked in. So having that fundamental aspect of the Square One program, it provides you the opportunity to look at your organization as a business. How is it going to be successful? How do you put parameters in place? How do you move your organization forward? Maybe you can speak to, like, again, what Christy talked about.
Some of the surprises. What did you learn?
What was a surprise that if you didn't know when you walked into Square One, what did you come out on the other end saying, oh, my God, didn't know that?
The importance of connections, local. What for me, it was here in St. Louis, but it doesn't have to be here just in St. Louis. Finding people who are experts in areas that I'm not, that can give me advice on things. That was a big one for me, because I was trying to do everything myself or with my partner, and it goes slow that way.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, training yourself to be every aspect of your business is not necessarily the best way forward. But understanding what those aspects of business are so that you can find the right people and then be able to look at what they're doing and make that evaluation of, are they really adding value to what I'm doing? Those are kind of the things we try to get across too, that you don't have to be the accountant, but here's what the accountants should be working on and being able to produce for you. So if they're not, you probably need to go work with somebody else.
And I think too, the networking aspect, because Square One has this army of different individuals that they work with, that they can expose you to, that can help you with your business. I think that is a huge opportunity that Square One provides.
Yeah, I would think so too. I mean, I think before I started HIPAATrek, and I went through Square One simultaneously as Capital Innovators as HIPAATrek, and I was learning a lot. Like,
yeah,
I was
no kidding.
So new, and like, I didn't like to talk. I didn't like to get in front of people. And at Capital Innovators, you're getting in front of like 8 people. It's not that hard. It's really easy. Well, at Square One, you're getting in front of like 50 people. It was a little bit harder, and you're having to talk through your ideas and your stuff. And like, that was a little bit
intimidating.
Yeah. And so like, one of the things that I learned was, going through that. And then I had a mentor that I had met through my previous company who told me, because I was complaining to him about like how, like, here I signed up for this like Square One program and they're making me get up in front of and talk to people and I don't like it. And so I was told I had to go, so I did this program called Toastmasters, and that actually helped too. So like going in, so I had a mentor, and I complained about what I was having to do at Square One, who then told me how to solve it. So there's things like where you can actually learn where your weaknesses are really, really fast when you're going through a program like that.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to take a quick break and come back and talk a little bit more about that as well.
How can our listeners begin living their lives with focus on their physical, mental, spiritual health? What are some of those small steps that they can take?
I would practice acceptance. Now, people misunderstand acceptance. They think it means I'm okay with this or it's fine.
And acceptance is not tolerance.
It is not. Acceptance means it is what it is. We used to have a saying in our office that it is what it is. It becomes what you make of it. So you first have to accept the facts before you can take an action.
We need to thrive. Log on to aliveandwellstl.com.
My name is Sarah Bannerman. I am the CEO of HIPAATrek, and thinking entrepreneurially to me means being prepared to jump out of that airplane, not knowing if your parachute is going to open or not, and being okay if you fall flat on your face.
So, Sarah, even though you've described this as painful, and there are parts you didn't like, which, every organizer of a program loves to hear those things. No, I won't take them personally.
Hey, I was there every week.
I know. I mean, that's the thing is, you're not the first person to say, wow, it was a lot of content. Oh, my God, you probably should do fewer speakers. 3 on Mondays is a lot. Or I've heard all that. None of this is, but also the next breath is, I wouldn't have changed anything because I would have missed something that I didn't even know I needed. So along those lines, after leaving Square One, what were some of the resources that you tapped into to make sure that you could take all the things you did learn and start to move them forward? Because as we remind our listeners a lot, this ain't easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it, right?
Yeah. My binder.
Your binder.
Love my binder.
We stopped doing the binder, actually. Everything is electronic now. So if you want a binder, you have to actually print out everything and do it on your own. But what she's referring to is we used to print out all the presentations every week for everybody, and that created the binder.
Yeah, so I live by that binder still. Like when there's something that I don't need, like I don't remember or I can't recall, or I'll be like, where did I hear that from? That had to come from somewhere. And the first place I always look is my binder.
And now you can check the online startup toolkit on CETHINKSTL-025 because we've taken all those presentations that we recorded and they're up on there. So you don't you don't always have to remember.
That's cool.
But I just wanted you to know that as well. But,
so even the program is iterating.
Well, yes, we're entrepreneurs as well.
Yes.
That's so cool. Yeah, but I mean, you go back to that. Like that's one of the biggest resources that we have is it's hard. It's just like when you're in college, right? You don't remember everything your professors tell you. There's no possible way you can do that. And so you have to go back to your notes.
But you know where the information is
exactly.
and where it sits.
And
I think that's interesting.
Yep. So going back to those notes and making sure that you have those in place. And then even just like in college, when you move on to the course that's above that course, like you still go back to your notes from the previous course when you're like, how are we supposed to do that? Oh yeah, now I got it. And so you moved forward. It was a building block.
And like your business plan, these are living documents. So things you were writing about in year one, you might actually be implementing in year two and completely changing in year three. Right. These things kind of go along that path as well.
Well, we've actually progressed in like the way that you guys had us do our business plan model. We actually we don't do that for our business plan. We actually do that for the features inside of our application. So it's more of like a product roadmap thing for us.
So you're using the business model canvas to actually iterate on your products.
Models. Yep.
Awesome.
And that's how we model out everything else because we want to see like what are our competitors doing. And so when we think of a feature, if it's already saturated in the market, it doesn't make any sense for us to actually do that yet.
That's great.
Fantastic.
So we try to think of ways because we're still very young. We have still relatively small market share. And so we want to make sure that we want to saturate that market, right?
That's great.
And so since there is really no clear leader in HIPAA compliant software right now, because it's all a bunch of startups essentially.
Right.
So we want to be the startup that has everything that people actually want and need.
That's wonderful.
So Sarah, when you left off after you went through the fabulous failure and then the restart of a great organization, how are you building your organization and where you are right now? Because we're going to go back to Brad because I want to hear how you've used the resources from Square One and where you built your company to date. But Sarah, because you started HIPAATrek with you. Yes. And where you are today.
Yes, and an attorney. So Mark was my attorney, and he got a very small piece of the pie so that he would do all my stuff. And we're essentially, like Christy alluded to, like we sit on multiple markets, right? So we're legal and healthcare technology. And so we have attorneys.
A lot of disciplines.
Yeah. And so we have... so it was Mark and I, but Mark was such a small founder, right? And then we identified the need to have somebody that actually can do the development because I architected and developed our first iteration of our software. I learned how to develop off of codecademy.com, and I was bad.
But you got a prototype, you got a minimum viable product, and then
and we sold it, and it kept crashing. And like, I actually found one of our first clients through the Square One program. It was a young woman that actually worked for a healthcare startup here.
Oh, wow.
And I talked her into using our crappy product. It's not crappy anymore, but it was back in the day.
Right. So you iterated, and that's how those things happen.
Yeah. Well, and then she was actually applying some of the stuff that she learned through Square One to actually help us better our product. She found us a development house out of Columbia, Missouri, so still kind of local. We basically scrapped everything I did and redid it. And that was something that came out of Square One, like to what Brad was saying is it's all about the connections and the networking that can occur there because you never know where you're going to find the people.
Right.
And then that helped us to find our CTO, who helped us to find our director of operations, who helped us to find our 2 salespeople, who helped us to find our compliance manager that we have now. Like it just kind of is all grown.
Yes, there is no magic database or repository of all these things we always tell people, this is about who you know and how you get to know them and your ability to sell your idea to not only your customers, but the employees,
your employees.
And different stakeholders who are coming
So
on.
you're up to how many employees now?
9.
9 employees. Started
2 years.
In 2 years.
Very impressive.
2 people, but really you moving the company forward. That's a great story.
And Brad, you're at a slightly different part, but just like Sarah did both Square One and Capital Innovators, and she worked with Cheryl at BioSTL and all of that, you've also tapped into a lot of other resources in the ecosystem as well.
Yeah. So, first I would say when I finished Square One, I was awarded a small grant from BioGenerator, and that really helped a lot. It allowed me to do a lot of prototyping and develop my proof of concept. And we're almost to a very final stage in that.
Fantastic.
And that's leading to instruments that will be available hopefully in February.
Wonderful.
For beta testing. But along the road, a lot of resources became available to me. So the tech shop opened across the way. I was able to make prototypes there far less expensively than hiring someone to do the engineering, because I started doing that my own. But then
Tech shop is new to St. Louis, and they provide an opportunity for tinkerers like yourself. Instead of hiring somebody to do your prototypes, you can go in there and build it yourself with a membership, right?
That's right. You get a membership. You can take classes and learn how to use different pieces of equipment. And it's a giant makerspace. And there are other people doing the same kind of things. They're either making things for their business or making things for gifts for people or whatever. They're just making
great
things.
Opportunity.
My 7-year-old just told me the other day, tech shop's fantastic. You can go make anything you want. I was like, what do you want to make? Let me get you a membership.
Awesome.
Exactly.
But she caught on to that really quick. My 12-year-old son, he could care less.
Hey, there's different
to each his
spaces
own,
for
right?
everyone,
I love that.
right?
The women, the girls are moving forward with the technology.
Gonna go make some
engineering.
things. Awesome.
But so tech shops have been a really good resource for me. People compliment my progression, our company's progression, that we get things done fast. So like you mentioned, fail fast. The same way with prototyping. I want to know if this works. If it doesn't work, I want it to fail fast. And so we've been able to do that using 3D printing services, learning how to do injection molding over there, machining and laser cutters and all kinds of different equipment that I couldn't afford to do myself.
Right,
but with an annual membership, it's much more feasible. So Tech Shop has been a really good resource for me. Harry Rader with BioSTL and now with BioGenerator has been a really good resource putting me in connection. He's actually the one that introduced me to Square One and said, hey, think about this. And then my perseverance through that, he said, all right, so maybe you're worth looking more into. And so that led to my grant with BioGenerator. And that's where I'm at now, just finishing up this proof of concept.
So it's still 2 of you guys in the company. Have you brought in anybody else?
So we've had the luxury that he's a professor at Maryville University, and so he's had some students work on doing some research in the lab, doing validation work. I've also had the fortunate experience of meeting Joe Klaesner at Washington University in St. Louis. He instructs the capstone course for biomedical engineering students, and so 2 teams of engineers are working on different aspects of my instrument. One is, instead of a pipette, it's just an instrument that sits on the bench, and the other team is working on the software that can be integrated into that first instrument or into my pipette.
That's a great resource that most people don't know. And most of these universities, they do have these type of courses where students work directly with businesses in figuring out product specifications, especially in the engineering space. And the school has other capstone programs like that works with small businesses. So it's an opportunity that a small company doesn't have to outlay cash for to get all these services done. And I mean, I think that's a great resource.
Having that network, being aware that the ecosystem isn't just discrete organizations, but the universities are really a part of that. Our local government is part of that. And there's lots of different ways to get connected and stay connected. I think just as Sarah alluded to going back to the plan and going back to your notes, you also need to go back to those relationships and spend time, because just like content, I hazard to guess that some of our Square One folks don't even realize who they've necessarily met through the process and how those people might be of value as they go along. and getting some head nods here.
Yes,
so you guys would agree?
Completely. Just with my interaction with Harry.
Who's one of the track leaders for Square One.
And so I think of them as resources. It's something it's like you would use a dictionary or encyclopedia or something, which nobody uses anymore.
It's all in Google, but the same concept.
The concept is Google. Yeah. There are many resources in the St. Louis area that can help in a variety of aspects. grant writing. If you like non-dilutive funding,
right,
it's a great way to go. There's resources to help you write grants. If people deem that you're worth working with, right? You got to prove yourself. But yeah, those resources are available.
Awesome. I'm really glad you guys touched on that. You also touched on essentially coming to see yourselves in different roles, whether that was moving from being an academic to being a business person, or teaching yourself how to code so that you could see your vision come to life. How do you see yourselves today, and how is that different than maybe before you?
Sarah,
I've asked a very poignant question here, something that clearly has touched a nerve here. So what did that make you think of?
How do I see myself today? Honestly, I feel like most entrepreneurs that are new entrepreneurs, which I still consider myself new, 2 years into it, right? I see myself as a hot mess. It's
I love honesty, truth in advertising.
I'm the guy that fills the gaps.
Huh?
Right? Whatever we don't have somebody to do, I fill the gap.
Yeah.
Right? And I never know how to fill that. I always have to learn how to do it. It's always a learning curve.
Yeah, and then you have the balance. So you mentioned you had children. I have children too. And so then you have to manage all these different roles, and it's hard. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a business owner. I have all these responsibilities. The clients still call me, even though we have account executives and a compliance manager. They still call me. So you're still having to deal with all of that. And so literally, if you want a 40-hour work week, do not become an entrepreneur. I'm working easily 80, 90 hours a week. My family gets mad at me because I come home and it's okay, I have 1 hour. You have 1 hour, and then I'm getting back to work. And then when that
it's
hour.
It's very true, though. It's very true.
It is.
Yeah, and then
you can work those 90 hours as an employer. I think there's a big difference in that mindset.
Yeah.
Where you're working for yourself rather than, working for someone else's equity.
Yeah, it's worth it, but in the end, balls drop, and so I see myself especially as a woman, I think this is I'm sure it's hard for you too, Brad, but as a woman, we have a lot of guilt.
Yes.
A ton of guilt.
Especially with our children.
Yeah, and my kids are adults. My kids are adults. They're 19 and 21. They're in college, but it's but I still feel that guilt, and when my kid is texting me, Mama, what's for dinner? Seriously? Right. Freaking 19 years old, but you still have that guilt or whatever. I guess I better leave the office and go and do that, or But
that's so funny because I just told my family yesterday because I had so much to do. I was you have an hour.
Yeah.
I have stuff to do. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
But I think it speaks to your passion. Because you wouldn't do this if you were not passionate about the venture that you're building.
Yeah, and Brad hit the nail on the head. I mean, when I co-founded Mission Center, I worked way harder than I had ever worked anywhere ever. And it wasn't because somebody was standing over me as my employer or manager. It was because it had to get done. I had to figure out how to do the pro forma iterations, because if we didn't, we couldn't go raise money. And I wasn't going to, the story I sometimes tell is one day the small staff that we had came in and saw somebody under the sink fixing the faucet, and they said, "Is that Christy?" Because I would be known to step in and try to fix whatever it was, whether it was a client a challenge or a product issue or that. Or thankfully, I did not try to do plumbing, but that kind of gives you a sense of it wouldn't have surprised them if I had.
But see, that's the mentality of when you want to become a CEO, you have to take on that. I am motivated. I'm self-motivated. I want to do these. I realize these are going to be hard. There are things I don't want to do. You've got to get through that.
And I think that's what most people, I want to run my own business. I want to be the CEO. People don't know what that entails. That entails,
getting paid
everything.
Last and sleeping little.
There you go.
Yeah, it's so much sacrifice. But one of the things too is you said, so you have to have this passion and stuff. So also too, as the founders or co-founders, we also have to kind of realize that we don't need a CEO, because we are the CEOs, right? Because nobody will have that passion that you mentioned other than us.
The role of the CEO is to have the vision and the drive.
But you also
you got that.
Exactly, but you also recognize the needs and what you need for your organization to move forward. Because a title doesn't mean anything. I always say in the startup community, title doesn't mean jack. It means moving your venture forward and being successful with either producing a product or service that somebody is going to pay for, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Those titles are vanity titles, right? Like, it's all for the vanity of it all, right?
Exactly.
Well, there has to be something to make you feel good in the initial stages, just because it's so much work.
Yeah, but see, the thing is like, so whenever I go to hire somebody, right, so the most recent person I hired was Hernan, who's our compliance manager, right? So he has 12 years of experience as a privacy officer in the Air Force. So when it took me 6 months to convince this guy to come and work for me. He was working for one of my competitors. And I got him to come over. And when I did, like, he was like, okay, so what's my title? I was like, what do you want it to be? Whatever you want it to be is your title.
Hey, we use whatever currency we have, right? Exactly. Absolutely.
So let me ask you guys this, because we've talked about a lot of different things. What are some of the challenges that you're facing now that your company is getting sea legs, it's moving forward? What do you guys see as some challenges on the horizon, which could be opportunities?
So for me, I'm early stage still, pre-revenue, technology development. Those are obvious challenges. I'm ready to start getting into how do I start getting clients? How do I get customers? Right. That's the direction.
Business development.
And so yes, my business model and what is the value of this product to them and pitching this. Those are all things that I'm starting to move back into.
Okay. And how are you learning more about that area? How you think you're going to manage that? I don't say fix. I say manage.
So, again, like I said, I'm in a fortunate situation where I have some different students working for Washington University. I'm in the prototyping stage, and so we want to do beta testing soon. And they're like, yeah, there's several people that want to do beta testing on your instrument. So I've got an in there.
That's great.
Dr. Spudic already works at one university. I had a friend changing jobs, moved from New York out to San Francisco, and he wasn't interested in my instrument when he drove through when he stayed the night. He's like, great, whatever, I got to get to work, right? I got to go out to San Francisco. So he got out there a week later. He's like, can I get one of those instruments?
Right.
He just found
That's
a need
great.
for it, and he just realized it's a pain what he's doing, going through. And he's like, how soon can I get one? And so I'm like, well, how much are you willing to pay?
That is right. There you go. And it's not a night's sleep at my house either.
Right. No kidding.
So Sarah, talk to us about what do you see on the horizon?
So I guess I'm just a little bit further ahead because I'm also a year older.
And you are revenue generating.
We are revenue generating, but we've been revenue generating since before we had a product because we did things a little bit differently in that we pre-sold our product. We pre-sold a promise because we needed the money to actually...
It is a way to move forward with your bootstrapping. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we... Yeah.
And you're still doing consulting and conference speaking?
I'm speaking at conferences, but I'm not doing consulting anymore, except for I have like a handful of clients that I've had since, back in the day when I first quit my real job and became a consultant.
That's your W-2 job. That's not this is your real job.
Yeah. So I think right now our biggest challenge is we've bootstrapped kind of as far as we can. Like now we're getting into the standpoint where we have to do some really big advertising and promotions. We need to revamp our website. We need to invest in some SEO. We need to hire and pay more than just commission and equity to our people. So
you've got growing pains.
Yeah. And so that's where we're at right now. Those are our biggest problems right now our revenue is an inch big and our need is a mile big.
Right.
And so we're needing to actually fill that gap. And so we're actually having to come in and fundraise because to date we've raised less than $300,000 in the past 2 years. And otherwise we've just supported ourselves. And so now we're getting to that point where we realize
you got to go to that next level.
Yeah. And that's a little bit hard. For me, because I'm going to lose a lot of equity and the people that I've brought on and I've paid them through equity, they're going to So getting the whole team around the idea that we're going to do this fundraise and we're going to lose equity.
But you're going to leverage the resource you have, which is also the thing, having a percentage of a very large number is always better than having 100% of nothing.
Which is exactly what we're selling.
I was going to say, you can always structure that deal different ways.
Well, yeah. And so those are things like that those are our pain points right now. And I think that that's a pain point that every startup gets to.
Has. No doubt.
I think we've been pretty
What that tells
fortunate.
me is a great opportunity that you're facing, because you're not perishing at this point. There is a market, there's an opportunity, and you just need to get yourself out there and moving forward and getting to that market from a marketing sales standpoint. So that's a great situation to be in. You just got to go out there now and raise the money to do it, right?
Well, yeah, but I'm really fortunate that I have a fantastic director of operations. He's fantastic. He's got a great network of people that he can raise money on. Yep. He's actually convinced our board that we need this raise at this value, and that how we're going to actually go about doing it.
And you guys have you guys move beyond the MVP. You have a product.
We have a product that we're selling.
Exactly.
Again,
that's what a lot of investors want to see. They want to see the product. They want to see you have some traction. And of course, they want to see your team.
And for every entrepreneur, there are different stages. And just as Brad noted, he's looking to acquire customers at this point. Totally different conversation than acquiring investors, but those are the range of topics that we cover in Square One. So on that note, because I really do think we could probably spend 2 or 3 days talking about all this, which is the exciting part, because we don't often get a chance as entrepreneurs to reflect on our experience. So I really appreciate you taking the time to reflect with us on your experiences. And as we say goodbye to our listeners for this episode, is there anything you need that we can help with at this point? So, Brad, should we be looking at your website if we are in need of a instrument that will a spectrum? I'm going to let you say it again.
It's a MySpec.
A MySpec.
It's a personal spectrophotometer, MySpec.
Okay.
You can go to www.spectrumperception.com.
Great. And so if you want to learn more about that product, or if you're in the need to make sure you're HIPAA compliant and using the latest and greatest tools to help you accomplish that, where would they find that, Sarah?
They can go to HIPAATrek.com. That's HIPAA with 1 P and 2 A's.
Wonderful. And so customers, investors, and Christy, supporters and fans alike, we want to do that.
Where can they find Square One?
Thank you for asking, Cheryl. That would be at CETHSTL.com. If you look under our programs, you'll see both the Ignite program, the 4-week business model canvas validation process that we're taking applications for, and the 10-week boot camp, which we do in the fall. So again, thank you so much for spending time with us. And we look forward to keeping track of what's going on and how successful you are.
Absolutely. We're going to bring you back and track you.
Thank you.
Changing the way you view new ventures, igniting your thinking about entrepreneurship. It's entrepreneurially thinking. Get connected and discover more. Visit our website for show notes, resources, information about our guests, upcoming events, and of course, all your favorite episodes. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them for us in the comment sections, and be sure to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The best way to show love is to share. Let everybody know that you're thinking entrepreneurially. So visit our website, entrepreneuriallythinking.com. #ETHINKSTL. Entrepreneurially Thinking is another positive production of RareGem Productions. Thanks for listening.